recording for Memorial Day. For this podcast, we're going to talk about, we're recording the front lobby of my office, actually, because this is where I display all of the Memorial Day, all the veteran regalia of my family, all the military regalia of my immediate family, I guess. My uncles both served too, and my cousin, and pretty much everybody, really. Yeah, correct. Pretty much every male in our family, dating all the way back, is served. But I'm lucky enough to have my grandfather's and my Uncle Ray's military gear, and of course, I have my dad's stuff here posted in my lobby at all times, so people can come in and look at it when they're sitting. I have his flags. That I have Uncle Ray's flag and my dad's flag. Both of those things were given upon their death. Uncle Ray's flag is over there, but it's got his medal in it from being held in action and a letter that the U.S. military sent them, as well as some of his letters that he sent home to my area. Those are in there too during the war, which are pretty cool to read. And then I have my dad's flag, of course, that we got upon his death, and a letter from the president just acknowledging his military service. So that's really neat. But we are looking at uniforms from my grandfather, who was Sergeant under General Patton during World War II, my dad, who was Navy radio man in World War II, and then my Uncle Ray, who was, he's my great uncle, I guess. He was a Marine sharpshooter, sniper during World War II. Both my grandfather and my Uncle Ray were both sharpshooters, both incredibly talented riflemen. Yeah, no, not Dad. No, not Dad. He did not have the aim for that. So my mom is joining me today to talk a little bit about my family's military service. And we pulled a couple things out of my grandpa's box to go through and talk about that he carried with him during World War II. There's some cool gear up here. Obviously, you can see by Roy's chest that he was incredibly decorated. He had quite a few medals, which are all named up there. All of the medals that are up there are identified by my cousin Helen. My grandma sat down and did that for us. So that's up there and written in his case. And there's a map up top on his that shows where he went through Europe. And then down here, of course, is his hat. And I pulled some things out on the shelf. There's a chemical warfare card, which I think is really cool. It identifies what to do in case of chemical warfare. I have a shell shot. I've got his shaver that he carried during World War II. I have a photo of him, his cute little high school photo. He looks small there, but he was a huge guy.
Over 6 foot.
Yeah, 6'3". He's just
green shoulders like a mountain.
Just a big guy. And then I have his prayer book.
And they gave these prayer books to every soldier, as far as I've been told, in World War II too.
And what's pretty cool about them is the back is just like any other Bible. It's soft, right? But the outside is, so you can hear it. It's metal covered to go in your chest and protect your heart.
Yeah.
So that's pretty neat that's where they're supposed to carry it, and that's what its purpose was.
He also had, some of them had a card, Psalm 23, which he carried at all times.
And Grandpa carried that. He had it in his wallet for years. Yeah.
At their funeral, I know.
Yeah, that was Grandpa's too. But we also have some, French money from when he was there.
Yes, he was all over. He was in France, Austria. It's just Germany. He was just everywhere. And he was, as I said, in Patton's third army. And he just loved General Patton, loved him, and really admired him. And let's see, he was 20 when he became a sergeant. And then he came home. He was the only surviving son, and they left him on the front for a year and a half, even though he was a surviving son.
And then he was given the option and did not return home upon the option until he was done, until he was released. He was given the option to stay at one point or come home because he was surviving son. When they finally gave him the option, he chose to stay. So
he wrote letters to my grandma every day.
Yeah, we have those too.
And those we got the week before. My aunt found them in her attic, and it was the week before her house burned down. So it was really a blessing to read all my dad's letters to his parents. And he had sent home his check because he didn't smoke at the time. So he sent home all his check to help out with family expenses because my grandpa was disabled from World War One. And so when he got home from World War II, my grandma had saved all this money for him. And he bought a fancy car because he loved a new car.
He did, but the same car.
Well, he would buy, his rule of thumb is you had to buy a new car every 3 years.
But that new car looked exactly like the old car, so nobody knew he got a new car.
To show off.
Right. But it was a new car every 3 years. It was always,
buy a used car.
He loved that Ford Crown Vic. He had that for a long time. He had a tan Ford Crown Vic for.
He said, "Oh, you like my new car?" I'm like, Dad, it looks just like road tax.
Exactly the same car, actually. So it's fine.
And then Ray was 17. He enlisted early because he wanted to help out too. So he left high school to enlist. And they shipped him over to Saipan, and he was killed by enemy fire. He was shot. I think he had a bleeding problem, and so he really bled to death. So he was only 17 years old. And then Peter, of course, was in the Navy. He, when he was in high school, they would put an announcement like, all young men must report over and sign up for the draft. Every day they would take another bunch. So he went over with his friends, and he wanted to be a Marine. I don't know why, because this is really track. No, he was 130 pounds before that. Yeah. So he went to the Marine line, and he, all his friends joined the Marine line, and then 2 before him, they said, that's it for the Marines, we're full, move over to the Navy. So that's how he ended up in the Navy. He didn't get to go with his friends who were all Marines, but most of them were killed in battle. So he was on the USS Los Angeles. And back then they tested, I'm sure they still do, tested your acne to see what our strengths were. And so he became a radio man for the head guy of the ship. I don't know what you would call him. It was USS Los Angeles, which I think was a heavy cruiser. I don't know that much about it.
Sorry to the rest of my family that's Navy. I don't know.
And so he served, he was in the Pacific area. So he was over by China and Japan in that part of World War II.
Yeah, Dad loved the Pacific area. I mean, always loved everything about culture and everything from there.
Yeah, in fact, he used to love to go to Hawaii because it reminded him so much of my.
Yeah, he loved Hawaii. We only went once. It was my first vacation ever that we all took, other than Disney World when I was 3. We went in 4th grade to Hawaii. I will never forget that was it was a week-long vacation. We never took week-long vacations.
Well, 3 type A's in a hotel room was not pretty.
No, it's too much. So, but we took a vacation, went to Hawaii, and I was so excited. I made him go on 6 dolphin tours. It was the best.
We went on those dolphins, right? So we watch all the, it's the whales. We watch all the whales. 3 hours we're out there watching whales.
Look bored out of our body.
I'm like, okay, well, it's finally over, right? We go back, oh, let's go again. And so they both hop back on the boat.
Because Dad and I loved it.
Yeah. So 6 hours on the boat watching whales jump up.
That was not
up and down.
A wild dolphin started jumping on the side of the boat, and the staff brought me. I still to this day, it's a core memory for me. So if that staff ever sees this, core memory of my life that you did this, is they pulled me out. I was the only kid on the dinner cruise, and they pulled me out on the side of the ship, and I got to put my hand. They were like, "Put your hand out." And I put my hand out. The dolphin jumped 4 times to let me touch it. It jumped so I could pet it as it was jumping on the side of the ship. It was still to this day a core memory for me. So cool. It must be. I mean, I'm sure it was a dolphin that did that all the time, that interacted a lot, but so neat.
And the reason we ended up in Hawaii, it was an ABA.
Yeah, it was the Bar Association. It was the American Bar Association seminar.
It was a beautiful hotel.
Yeah.
The Kealani. It's a gorgeous hotel. And I have issues sleeping, of course. So he was actually one of the few attorneys that actually went to the Bar Association meeting.
Yeah, he went to the seminar.
Every day. The other guys were out on the golf course or wherever. Not Peter, he didn't do that. And so she went to the kids club to play. So I was left by myself. And if you've ever been to Maui, it's okay, there's 10 t-shirt shops. Okay, I'm done shopping.
There's a lot of things to do in Maui.
But they had a great chair in the lobby.
And that's what she did for all 7 days, was sleep in a chair in the lobby.
And I'd fall asleep in this chair. So the day we're coming home, I'm picking the chair up and turning it upside down so I can see what brand it is.
And Dan and I then offered her for sale, and nobody took her.
So the manager of the hotel comes over. Is there a problem with the chair? I said, no, I really like this chair and I want to buy it. And so I get the name of it, but I didn't buy it.
But she did turn it over in the lobby for everyone to see.
Because, no one knew me. I don't care.
Yeah, Dan and I were mortified, but that's another conversation. But my favorite part of that story is that Dan got his famous dolphin sweater.
Oh, and wore it forever. Still had it. It's
a core memory. Yeah, we will. Yeah, we'll put a picture of him wearing it in here. It's a core memory for Alyssa and I. His dad wore this dolphin sweater like every Sunday with a white collar shirt underneath it, with his khakis, and his little brown loafer things on Sunday. He's so cute with his little high pants.
He thought he was pretty good looking in that. That's what he thought. Yeah. I bet it reminded him of Alexis. That's why he wore it.
He loved dolphins. My dad and I are the same human. Like, he also was so pumped to be on a dolphin tour. He thought it was amazing. So, yeah, no, that totally tracks. He would love it. I had that sweater in my closet. I wear it every once in a while. It still smells like that.
Fun story about Peter. We went up to the Field Museum, and they had that captured German submarine. We waited in line for an hour and a half to see this, get inside this submarine.
Because I wanted to go.
Hour and a half, waiting in line. We get up there. We're the next ones to go in. He goes, I can't go in there. I'm like, what do you mean? We've been waiting an hour and a half. He would not go in. He would not go in. He's claustrophobic. He said, I can't go down there.
He said it reminds me too much. You can't do it. And would not go in the boat.
So he wanted me to give our tickets away to a little boy or a little girl. So I was looking around for one. I found one, and then this poor little boy, I must have scared him to death. I was trying to give him.
I'm sure, because here's a strange person walking up to offer you a ticket. You know what I mean? Don't take the candy, get in the van, right? So, like, that's, I'm sure, what this kid thought.
But yeah, he would not go in that submarine.
Yeah, no. Would not go. I was going to have to go alone, so that was a no.
It was tiny, though. It was amazing. Yeah, it was probably maybe 18 inches wide at the opening at the top.
It's still there. People go in it all the time. It's still there.
No, it's still there. I couldn't do it nowadays, but back then I was going to do it since I waited so long. But then when he chickened out,
he would not go. The same reason he also thought, he was very concerned that a cruise might have a trough like they had the boats in World War II, so he would not get on a cruise. We were like, it's a floating hotel. He was like, nope, not going to do that. It might be just like World War II and I can't do it. So that's a real thing that stuck with him, like, for life, is that they all had a trough that they had to use in World War II on that ship, and he really, like, was not ever going to put himself at risk of having to use a trough.
But getting back to the Veterans and Memorial Day, one thing about your grandpa, I don't remember if you know this or not, but he would put a flag out every day and take it down every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yep. I remember him doing that. Yeah. I think a lot of people, we laugh a lot about people wearing the American flag is, against the rules, right? Like, you could have patches, like, there are certain rules to it. But a lot of, like, shirts I have it on it, like, that's totally against the rule for the flag. So we laugh a lot about it. People aren't necessarily, I think, clear on flag etiquette.
And I don't think they know how to dispose of an old flag, a disused flag.
Yeah, that's like my favorite PSA. If you don't know how to do that, you just call, like, the VFW or the American Legion. They will come help you figure it out. They'll tell you what to do with it. They'll tell you how to fold it. They'll tell you where to take it. Like, they will help you take care of it. Call your local veteran, because it will help you.
More people should know them. And we have lots of different flags. If a flag is hung upside down, that's distress. There's all sorts of different flag things that people should be aware of.
Yeah. So that's something to think about and look into on Memorial Day too, while you're thinking about people who paid the ultimate price, like Malcolm Ray. Because how can we honor that sacrifice? And that's kind of why I do what I do, is to try to honor the sacrifices they all made over the course of their life.
Their families. Can you imagine, not knowing if your child is alive? No. Or your husband, or your brother, your son. You don't know. Yeah. And they would just wait and wait and wait.
Yep. No cell phones. There's no way to even now, it's still so stressful.
Computers didn't belong. It was written that would write letters to each other, but they didn't even know if they got them. So yeah, it was a very different time, very difficult time for all those people. So it was, the soldiers had a very tough time, but their families did too.
Yeah. That is, I think, part of the sacrifice, right? You give up a lot.
They do give up.
You give up everything there. I mean, really, you give up everything. And when you come back, you're not necessarily back sometimes.
Your uncle was in the Air Force during the Vietnam era. And when he got back, he was, of course, spit on at the airport because of all the dissenters to the Vietnamese fight. But, like, he didn't call the shots. He just was in the Air Force.
Right.
And then he was stationed in Thailand at the time and was exposed to Agent Orange being put on the B-52 bombers. And so as a result, now he had a widowmaker heart attack.
Oh.
And crazy story. Yeah. The Air Force has now identified it as being the Agent Orange exposure.
Yeah. So it's crazy. Like, the whole thing is crazy. He was speaking. So
he was giving a speech at a religious conference.
At a religious convention. He was speaking at this convention.
Men's breakfast.
Yeah, like a men's breakfast in Arizona, and had a heart attack. And thank God there was a doctor in the room. Like, it's a men's breakfast open to anybody. Thank God there just happened to be a doctor in the room. He saved.
Yeah, he coded out 3 times on the way to the hospital.
He brought it, but he would 100% be gone if that doctor wasn't in the room. I'm incredibly grateful for him because he kept my Uncle Dave here. So, but he really, I mean, he's just done so much. And
then my cousin would be your second cousin, Pat.
Yeah.
Was a paratrooper in Vietnam and was left in the swamp for, I think it was like 4 weeks. I can't remember for sure exactly how long, but his whole unit or whatever was killed except for him.
he was the oldest.
Yeah, and he was like hanging in the swamp until they could rescue him. And when he came home, you could smell the swamp on him. So he had Agent Orange exposure as well, but so far he's doing pretty good.
Yeah, he's great. But yeah, like 3/4 of our family is served, right? Like, that's so when I tell clients, or I work with a lot of veterans and correctional officers, police officers. I work for a lot of those people, and when I tell them I'm used to military culture, like, most of them laugh, and I'm like, "But you don't understand. Like, I'm raised by, I was raised by that and this. Like, I was raised by, a value of integrity and hard work that I think if you don't, we talk about this. I'm on the Aruga board. We talk about how if you haven't, it's hard to work with veterans and their families, like hard to help veterans and their families who need mental health help. If you haven't ever been in military culture, like if you don't know military culture and what's expected of the family and the vet, it's hard to work with those people because you just don't get it. And I think that's true. I think if you've not been raised in that kind of family, with those same, it instills a different mindset for sure after military service. Like, you have a different mindset that I will never understand because I haven't personally served, right? Like, but I could see it in the way that I was raised. There were expectations that certainly my friends didn't have from their grandparents or their parents, that I had.
Well, and it affected, like, look at your grandpa, how he would scrub his garage floor every day.
And the driveway. I mean, literally the driveway got washed every day.
Right.
Everything was spotless all the time.
Yeah. And your father was a clean freak. Yeah. A little bit of a hoarder for paper, but he was a clean freak. He would put it in piles. So, he would go to the courthouse and he'd say, go to the 4th pile over from the phone, go down 10 pages and bring that to the phone.
And read to me on paragraph 2, line 3, what it says.
And if you touched his stuff,
it was like a verified.
He knew it. There was one time he and I were fighting over something, and I picked up his notes and threw them in the air, and then I ran like the wind because I knew I was going to get killed. I never did that again.
Yeah. He did not. You couldn't move his piles. Like, even a half an inch. If you went in his office and cleaned his desk, and moved, even if you put the piles back to where they were, If it was a half inch off, he knew and would tell you. He could walk in this, and like even like leveling things, like he'd walk in this office and be like, that picture is off by a quarter of an inch.
He could go down to a 16th of an inch with an electrician. And he measured, he said, I did it on purpose. And he can tell down to a 16th of an inch that it's off.
He was testing it because Dad was nuts, So, well, nuts. So he was trying to show him how to do this, and show him what he wanted.
It was that eye for detail that made him what he was.
Yeah. Well, that was part of, again, those things are instilled in you.
Right.
An eye for detail is important when you're doing what he did in the Navy. An eye for detail is important when you're doing, any kind of legal work.
Yeah.
Those things are important. His eidetic memory definitely didn't hurt either, though. So
yeah, and your grandma Linda too. You should, we haven't talked about your grandma Linda and your grandfather, Dominic.
Yeah, Grandpa Dominic served in World War One. World War One. I have his stuff on my phone on Ancestry. I wish I had anything of his, like paper from that, right? Or like he didn't have a uniform. Like there was none of his stuff. Like Dad had all of his stuff, but there wasn't like he didn't keep that stuff. He didn't keep his uniform.
Well, did he serve in the U.S. or did he serve in the?
Oh, he U.S. is what it looks like on. I mean, it's what it looks like on Ancestry.
Yes, it would be because he came over when he was 16.
Yeah, he was. It looks like it's U.S. I mean, I have it right here. I can pull it up, but it's pretty neat. I mean, Ancestry. Shout out to Ancestry. It's pretty cool that I can see his draft card. I can see his naturalization papers. I can see all of it, and I don't have any of those papers like in hand because the only things he kept were like notebooks that he did school assignments in. I don't know why I have those, but I do. I have his entire like Italian grade school notebook.
He died when he was 90, as well as your grandma Linda. She died when she was 90, and Peter lived to be 91. So longevity in the family.
So I'm not going anywhere. All that olive oil. Despite everybody's greatest hopes, I will still be annoying you for the next 60 plus years. No, I have his entire draft card. I've got the background of my family on here. It was pretty cool to be able to see all that. But, yeah, his draft card is pretty cool. Trying to think, my grandma's dad also. There's draft cards for Rocco in that family.
Rocco or C.
Rocco is isn't that a cool name? Rocco, I love that.
He was a miner, in Farmington. Yeah.
Yep. Cherry Coal Mine. Yeah. He was there when that occurred. I wrote an entire thing on the Cherry Coal Mine disaster because of Grandpa. Yep. But yeah, Grandpa's tree is pretty cool and all of his documents are on here, so that's pretty neat too. So there's military service on both sides. I mean, obviously, one generation back on Dad's side gets it pretty much into Italian military because Dad was first gen on his dad's side. He would have been second gen on Grandma's side, but first gen on Dad's side because Grandma came over here when Grandma was born here, but her parents came over literally right before she was born, like 3 years or something is when they got.
She was one of 10 children.
9, yeah, I think. Yeah, there was a lot of them. Ancestry has told me I have a lot of relatives that I did not know were relatives because there were 9 kids and they all had 9 to 12 kids too, except for Grandma who only had 2. A lot of them had a lot of kids, so we're a big family now, spread out all over. So that's been cool too to be able to meet cousins or whatever out there that I didn't know.
And all the women in your grandma's side, they all ran bars.
Yeah, they all ran bars or taverns, fried chicken and raviolis, every single one of them.
Okay,
and I can't cook at all. So that genetic lineage did not pass to me. My poor husband. He's the chef in our family. No, that is not me.
And your grandpa your great grandpa, he was in the army in World War One, and then he came home and buried my grandma in Kentucky, and then they moved to Illinois.
Yep. And Grandpa was raised in Fairbury, as you can see by the football jersey.
Well, he was born in Kentucky.
Yeah, but then raised in Fairbury. Yeah. Which is where a lot of our family still is. Yep. Fairbury, Farmington, that area down there. Pretty neat. So that's the history. That's the history. There's some cool things that we'll definitely do, like close-ups of. But I really like my favorite part of this prayer book, the front of it, the middle. says, "May this keep you from harm. May this keep you safe from harm." And I kind of like that in general. So that is the background of all of our veterans on the wall. And, obviously we're grateful for everybody's service. Memorial Day specifically is to remember those who have served and lost their lives in service, or who've served and passed, to thank them for the sacrifices that they made, which were obviously great. And I am grateful to have been raised by a group of individuals who recognized that service to others is greater than service to self. And I think that level of integrity has helped build this firm and certainly has helped build who I am as a human. So I am grateful for the opportunity to continue in that. I continue to serve others over myself, in general.
The Army did want you. They kept calling. They wanted you to go into the JAG
Yeah,
program.
we had to tell. Yeah, and even in law school, I got asked to go.
I know they kept calling while you were in high school. I'm like, yeah, I don't think she's a good fit.
I mean, I don't think I would have lasted. First of all, I'm not athletically inclined. I don't think I would have survived boot camp. I would think I would have died. But I'm not sure that my mouth quite fits in with boot camp. I don't fit that part of military culture. I don't think. I say a little too much for that. So I don't think that would be the right fit for me. But I do respect everybody who does it. I have a lot of friends. I have a couple friends that would JAG, and I recognize the things that they do in the difficult positions they are, sometimes in. And it comes with its own set of sacrifices. It's different than people who are maybe on the front lines, but it comes with its own set of sacrifices and difficult decision making and, sometimes difficult situations to have to process, how we got there and what fixes can we make to avoid this from happening again. So I recognize those sacrifices too, and I'm grateful for that too. But yeah, in law school, my favorite professor was my criminal law professor, Professor Hansen. He became the dean of the school, but I loved him. He was in charge of JAG and asked me, and I said, I don't think you want me to do that. He giggled. I remember him laughing at me. I was like, which boot camp is the shortest? Is my first question. And then he said, well, Marines is the longest. I was like, well, I'm obviously not a Marine, so I don't think that's my fit.
So yeah, you taking orders would not be. Yeah, I don't want.
The one husband, how that goes and does it go on?
The one thing I do like we go to a couple different cemeteries to honor on Memorial Day.
Yeah, we always have as a family.
And I do like that all the veterans that are able to come out and do the 21 gun salute and we have a little service there. So I think more people need to do that so you remember things for them.
Yeah, the cause of why we do it.
Phone down and go out and participate in it.
We are able to speak the way we do and have the freedoms we have. I'm able to not be great with being given orders because I live in a country that enables that. People fight for my right to maintain that and fight for my ability to maintain justice for others. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve in that capacity too, I think.
And I think with your background, it's instilled in you as a fighter. You've seen it growing up. You watched your father, you watched my father. You definitely were exposed to fighting for the right, standing for the right.
Yeah. Fight for what matters, fight for justice. Yeah. My grandpa was not one to mess with. He was very quiet until he didn't have to be anymore. That was when he knew he had a problem. Yeah, then he had a problem. I never experienced that side of him. Yeah, no, I was his age also.
Do you want to talk about different resources that veterans might need if they're struggling with mental health or?
So for sure, AFSP has an entire portion on this too, which I think is great. I will say the VA's come a long way in terms of what abilities they have to offer, but we do have local VA programs here that you can go in and set appointments. Locally, you don't have to go to Hines. You can go like to Peru to the VA and talk to them about it, or you can go to the VFW or the American Legion. Really, most of the time it's about finding community. We actually have a pretty large veteran population here, so finding people who have served. I think the difference between us and like the World War II generation, like our generation, the World War II generation, is our generation, when they draft you, put you in a unit, you're in with, everybody sort of from everywhere. Like you're not necessarily like this is different people from this same area. There was a lot more, I think, grouping in World War II. Like dad's friends that were all in the Marines, they all went in together. They were in the 2 units that were like together a lot, so they all knew each other. And the ones that came home, they all served together because it was a draft. The other big part of this is because it was a draft. They came home, they all returned to the same place, right? So they came back home. They all had served. They all had, the ability to find out where other people were that had served in World War II. They all had the ability to sit down in a restaurant and talk about it. And it was easy to find those people who had served. Now, even if the units were dispersed then, right? Now, because the units are dispersed and there's no draft, you come home and it's like, I don't know if there are other people in my area who have done this, who have gone through what I went, that served, abroad or who's only served here. Like there's differences too. There's a lot of different resources for people who served in both aspects, or people who find a community for people who served, abroad versus, locally or nationally. I think there's a deeper conversation to be had about how do we provide more community resources for vets to be in those group settings like the VFW and the American Legion that our generation just maybe isn't utilizing the way we could. It was much easier to gather when all of your friends got drafted and all of your friends came home and all of your friends had gone through the same things and you could talk, or like similar situations, and you could talk about them. It was much easier then, and now we don't have that same conversation because not everybody has to go to the military. Not everybody makes that choice. Not everybody has the opportunity to, even if they want to. Not everybody gets to serve abroad, even if they wanted to serve abroad. Like those things, everybody's experience is different now. So I think it does sort of put a hammer on what we're able to do and how we're able to provide resources. But the VA here is great. The AFSP has its own veteran outreach program. There is a veterans line that you can call, like generally, but 988 is always like if you're in crisis, always call 988. It's taken over for 800-273-TALK. 988 is now the National Suicide Lifeline. And it connects like 911 basically. So it'll connect you to a local therapist or EMS that will come help you. And it doesn't have to be EMS. If you're in crisis, you just want to talk to somebody, you can talk to a crisis counselor first, and they will help you figure out what needs to be done. If you need a ride or whatever, then they'll contact EMS. So that's a good system that we have in place now, and I think the people are much more able to get the help they need. And another thing that's great is the VA did start doing some reciprocal agreements. So, like, you can treat locally, for example. Instead of having to go to Hines, you can treat locally with different healthcare providers, and the VA will cover it the same way they would if you went to the VA to get your free healthcare. So, you have to find out which providers are on that reciprocal list, but because I don't know that all of them are, and I might be wrong about that. Maybe they are, but my understanding is it's only certain ones.
And I think it's a good thing that we have all these things for the veterans. And knowing my dad got home from World War II, they were basically told it's behind you, don't talk about it again. And he never talked about his service until he went to an army reunion. And then you would hear stories. Yeah. But he would never tell you anything that happened because they were told, just put it in the past. I'm sure he had PTSD. I'm sure he did.
Well, he still didn't talk about it. I mean, until he died. He didn't, until you knew he had cancer and was passing. That was when he started to tell us some stories. And when he passed, we found the photos of, the concentration camps and everything. And it's what they saw is unbelievable. Like, absolutely unbelievable.
And what he must have gone through, just the few things that he told me, I can't imagine living with the rest of your life.
Yeah, correct. From the things they saw there. Yeah, absolutely. But, again, Memorial Day is to remember that service and be grateful for the experiences that they had to help protect and save others. And I am eternally grateful that he was willing and able and wanted to be in a role that he could fight for what was right.
And we honor all those who volunteered today. They're volunteering.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. That's given the pay scale too, I think volunteering is the right word. your families are going through a huge sacrifice, time away. But it's not about the pay, it's about doing what's right. That's the difference. That's why I think people don't necessarily understand.
They want to preserve their country for future generations.
Nope. It's about fighting for what's right, protecting the people you love, the country you love. So I'm grateful. You do the wrap up.